As of the end of the 10th century, central Maghreb was occupied by the dynasty of the Zirids, vassals and lieutenants of the Fatimids. In 1004, Hammad ibn Bulugin was sent west to bring peace to the region. In exchange, he received the city of Ashir, central Maghreb, and all the cities he would subjugate. It was in the Madid Mountains, in a huge amphitheatre of steep slopes, that Hammad, riding on his success, founded in 1007 the veritable fortress city of Qala, the capital of the Hammadids. Qala was rimmed by a large stone wall with 3 main doors, today in ruins. Studies conducted since the beginning of the century on the site have allowed us to propose a hypothesis for the reconstruction of certain areas. The urban areas were settled on the 4 lowest sections of land, in neighbourhoods that each had their own palace, including the Lake Palace neighbourhood, the Mosque neighbourhood, and that of the Palace of the Manar. According to sources, the city enjoyed significant cultural, scientific and commercial influence, attracting famous figures of the period, such as the scientist Abd al-Rahim ibn Ishaq ibn al-Majlun al-Fazi, or the poet and scientist Abu al-Fadul ibn al-Nawi. The Lake Palace, thus named because of its large pool, is one of the largest compounds of Qala. Located at the heart of the city, it is surrounded by a stone wall and made up of various separate groups of buildings. It appears that this was initially a citadel made up of several palaces. This grey marble tub was discovered under tile work in the northwest corner of the courtyard. Inside the palaces, tubs were not just utilitarian. They supplied water to and cooled the rooms, but they were also used for entertainment by the inhabitants and had an important aesthetic purpose. Several wall or floor covering tiles in varied shapes have been discovered, in particular in the Lake Palace and the Palace of the Manar. Some are richly decorated, such as the tiles in the shape of 8-pointed stars, alternating with crosses adorned with the metallic luster technique, which originated in Mesopotamia at the beginning of the 9th century. Whether imported or produced on site, these tiles attest to the rich decorations of the palaces of Qala. This large area, surrounded by porticos, was very likely a pool. It may have hosted water games. In the Islamic world, other similar examples have been found, such as the Al-Mahad Menara Pool in Marrakesh. The Menara Pool, which covers about 3 hectares, was principally used for storing large quantities of water to irrigate the surrounding orchards. Soil studies of the Qala pool have revealed the use of a construction method similar to that used later by the Nasrids in the Alhambra pools in Granada. The Great Mosque of Qala is located on the south slope of a vast hill, 1,000 meters above sea level. The building underwent several phases of construction. In its first phase, the prayer hall was divided into 13 naves perpendicular to the Qibla, a wall at the front of the prayer hall that faces towards Mecca. These naves were separated by arches resting on pillars. The centre nave, wider than the others, led to the mihrab, a niche in the Qibla wall, indicating the direction for praying. On either side, 2 openings led to a room for storing the minbar, a sort of pulpit for preaching, and the other to the apartments of the imam. The naves opened onto the courtyard by bays with a single row of porticos. The layout of the mosque has similarities with that of the great mosques of Córdoba, Spain, and Kairouan, Tunisia, in which the naves are perpendicular to the Qibla. The courtyard is surrounded by porticos, and the small rooms are on either side of the mihrab. In the second phase of construction, the portico was widened and extended all the way around the courtyard. The facade of the prayer hall was reinforced by closing off some of the bays. In the corners of the courtyard, structures were added. It is surely during this phase that the maksura was built, the walls of which were higher than the roof of the prayer hall. This area in front of the mihrab was reserved for the sovereign and was made up of several naves parallel to it, changing the axiality of the monument, giving it a profile similar to certain Al-Mahad buildings, such as the Hassan Mosque in Rabat or that of Al-Mansur in Tlemcen. In the final phase of construction, coinciding with the decline of the city, the main layout of the building was not modified. The work for this phase was carried out with materials reclaimed from demolitions. The entrances on either side of the minaret were condemned, and a story was added to the corner structures. In mihrab axis, included in the north wall, there was a square minaret similar to those in Syria. In the second phase, its south wall was adorned with tiles, and its wooden stairs were replaced by a masonry staircase. It was decorated in 3 vertically arranged sections. Above the entrance, there was a rectangular plaque decorated with palmettos and foliage scrolls. At the centre, a vertical series of arches, some shallow, others open, whose shapes vary from lancet to rounded. On either side of this section, shallow niches, sometimes finished with shell patterns, or their backs adorned with tile mosaics or stucco crosses, are laid out symmetrically. The first researchers saw a link with antique or Byzantine patterns in certain elements of the decorations. Its summit having been destroyed, it can be supposed that it was topped with merlons or a dome light similar to the Qutubiyya Mosque in Marrakesh. The shape and decoration of the minaret shows similarities to the contemporary buildings of Giralda in Seville or with the Hassan Tower in Rabat. The palace of the Manar was set on a steep rocky mountain. Previous digs and the pitiful state of the ruins sometimes make it difficult to understand these structures. The palace was an architectural compound made up of 5 buildings and surrounded by a rampart. The 5th building, still partially standing, that completes this compound is called the keep. Built on a square foundation, it has front buildings on 3 sides. It surely had a defensive purpose and shows a strong Oriental influence, especially Fatimid, in its architecture. According to an Arab article, it was equipped with a mirrored apparatus to warn the inhabitants of any danger. The building had 1 story. At the centre, a cruciform room was covered by a dome that rested on black marble columns. This type of layout from the ancient Orient is seen as from the Umayyad period. The palace of the Manar revealed significant decorations: panelling, flagstones and marble columns, murals, stuccos, ceramic floor and wall coverings. These luxury materials and their combinations are reminiscent of the Sassanid or Byzantine decorations. The ornamentation of the palace of the Manar offers a glimpse of the wealth and refinement developed by the Hammadids. During the 12th century, the influence of the city started to decline in favour of Bougie. It was pillaged and destroyed several times, and sources no longer mention it in the following century.